It was a cold and windy evening in the city. The streets were busy, with people rushing to get home from work. The smell of roasted chestnuts and fresh coffee filled the air, mixing with the distant sound of car horns and footsteps. Among the crowd was a man named Daniel. He was just leaving his office, his coat buttoned tightly against the chill, his mind already thinking about the warm dinner waiting for him at home. Daniel was a mid-level manager at a marketing firm. His days were long, and his evenings were precious. He often walked the same route to the subway station, passing the same shops, the same buskers, and sometimes, the same people asking for spare change. He was used to it by now, so much so that he had stopped really noticing them. That night, however, something made him slow down. Just outside a small convenience store, a young woman sat on the cold pavement. She couldn't have been more than 25. Her hair was tangled, her clothes worn and thin. She was shivering, her knees pulled up to her chest, her eyes staring blankly at the ground. Beside her was a small cardboard sign with messy handwriting, "Hungry. Please help." Daniel almost walked past her. Almost. But then, just as he was about to take another step, he heard her voice. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, and it carried a weight that made him stop. "I haven't eaten in 3 days," she said softly, her voice trembling. Daniel turned. At first, he didn't know what to say. People said things like that sometimes, but there was something in her tone, something raw, unpolished, and painfully real. It wasn't just a request for money. It was a confession. He stepped closer. "What did you say?" She looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw her face clearly. Her cheeks were pale, her lips cracked. Her eyes were tired, but they held a strange mix of fear and hope. "I haven't eaten in 3 days," she repeated, her voice breaking on the last word. Daniel felt a pang in his chest. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. He thought about handing her a few bills, but something stopped him. Instead, he asked, "What's your name?" The question seemed to surprise her. "Emma," she whispered. "All right, Emma," Daniel said, "come with me." Her brow furrowed. "Where?" "To get some food," he replied. "Real food." Emma hesitated, glancing around as if unsure whether to trust him. But her stomach growled loudly, betraying her need. Slowly, she stood up, clutching the thin blanket wrapped around her shoulders. They walked together to a small diner just down the street. It was warm inside, the kind of place where the smell of fresh bread and sizzling bacon wrapped around you like a hug. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, greeted them with a smile and led them to a booth. Daniel didn't look at the menu. He handed it to Emma. "Order whatever you want. As much as you want." Her hands trembled as she picked it up. She scanned the pages, her eyes darting back and forth like she was afraid of making the wrong choice. Finally, she looked up. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Daniel said, smiling. Emma ordered a plate of pancakes, scrambled eggs, and a bowl of chicken soup. The waitress raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. When the food came, Emma didn't waste a second. She picked up her fork and began to eat, her movements quick but careful, as if savoring every bite. Daniel sat across from her, watching silently. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed with each mouthful, the way color slowly returned to her cheeks. After a few minutes, she paused, swallowing hard. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice quiet. Daniel leaned back in his seat. "Because I can. And because I'd want someone to do the same for me if I were in your shoes." Emma looked down at her plate. "Most people don't care." "Some people do," Daniel said softly. "You just have to find them." For the next hour, they talked. Emma told him about how she had lost her job months ago, how she had been staying with a friend until that friend moved away, how she'd been sleeping in shelters and sometimes outside when there was no space. She spoke about the endless rejection from job applications, the feeling of being invisible, the way people avoided her eyes like she was a stain they didn't want to see. Daniel listened, not interrupting. He realized that Emma wasn't just hungry for food, she was hungry for kindness, for someone to actually hear her. When they finished eating, Daniel paid the bill and walked Emma back outside. The night air was colder now, but she looked a little stronger, a little less fragile. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked. Emma shook her head. "Not really." Daniel thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone. He made a few calls and managed to find a local women's shelter with an available bed. He hailed a cab and handed the driver some cash. "This will take you there," he said. Emma's eyes widened. "Why are you helping me so much? You don't even know me." Daniel smiled. "I don't need to know you matter." For a moment, Emma just stood there, clutching the blanket tighter. Then she reached forward and hugged him. It was a small, fragile hug, but it was filled with more gratitude than words could ever hold. "Thank you," she whispered. The cab pulled away, and Daniel watched until it disappeared into the night. He didn't expect to see her again. He didn't need to. He had done what he could, and that was enough. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later, Daniel was sitting at his desk at work when his phone buzzed. It was a notification from social media. Someone had tagged him in a post. He clicked it, and his eyes widened. It was a photo of him and Emma at the diner. The caption read, "This man saw my sign, heard me say I hadn't eaten in 3 days, and didn't just give me money, he sat with me, bought me a meal, and found me a place to sleep. He reminded me that there are still good people in the world." The post had already been shared thousands of times. Comments poured in from people all over the world, praising his kindness, sharing their own stories of helping strangers, or being helped themselves. Daniel hadn't realized anyone had taken a photo. But as he read the comments, he felt something stir inside him. It wasn't pride, it was hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, more people would choose to stop, listen, and care. The next week, Emma sent him another message. She had gotten into a job training program through the shelter. She was working part-time at a bakery and saving up for her own place. She wrote, "I don't know if I would have made it to this point if you hadn't stopped that night. You didn't just feed me, you reminded me I was worth helping." Daniel smiled as he read it. And that night, as he walked home, he noticed the faces on the street a little more. He didn't see strangers anymore, he saw stories waiting to be heard.